The goal today is get the cooling system installed. Got the fan and the belt we can put the radiator in, and got the hoses. The thermostat's already in there, so should be able to hook up the cooling system today and start it up, get some heat in it, and see if it has any leaks, and then we'll go from there. Now they got the fan belt and pulley on. Got to tighten up the generator. There's 3 bolts. There's one on the top here, one toward the back underneath, and one toward the front underneath. So I like to pull on this with my hand, and it's 1/2 inch. Get it almost close to snug so I can pull this really tight. Get this top one. That kind of holds the position. Okay, now that we got the fan and belt on, we've got to make a couple connections here. We can put the radiator in anytime, but to complete the cooling loop, I also mounted the heater. Comes up through here, mounts underneath of here. Talked to some guys on the internet about, sequence of mounting the windshield and the doors, and they had recommended the heater after the windows, and I get it, to make sure there's plenty of space, but there's really, quite a bit of space here to work back in here to put the bolts in for the windshield. So at least this will let me be able to run the engine, get some heat in it, make sure we're okay there, and I can still have space to put the windshield and the bolts in from the side for the door there. So this is I'll need some 5/8 inch ID hose, so I got to run to one of the local auto stores and get at least a few feet, couple feet. We got to make a connection. There's a pipe that's going to come out of this spot here. It's that pipe right there, the shut off. So that screws in to this spot, and then we've got this longer pipe. It's got a union coupler, and it's going to go down into that hole there. So we'll get that mounted. Feeds up under the wires. It'll connect to this little standoff where the spark plug holders are. So this little bracket right here will go in with that bolt on the valve cover, and then that piece sticks up and it'll make a connection from here over to there. So so next thing, I gotta go get some hoses. I could go ahead and mount the radiator, put these pipes in place just so they're ready, and then I'll put the black touch-up paint on that guy after I install it. I'm going to have to use a pipe wrench, so whatever I put on there is just going to want to come right back off, so I'll touch it up later. Okay, got the pipe here set in place, nice and snug. Put a little bit of tape on there just to try to seal it. It'd probably go another round. It was starting to get pretty snug. I didn't want to go too crazy, and I pointed in the direction of the tubes here to the heater. So on this long pipe here, it's got this union. So this is the solid piece, so we can put that in first. I'll put some tape on there, screw that in, and then this coupler, rotates easily on that pipe, and then it'll seal off against there. And we'll put a little tape on there too. So 1-inch socket on that right there. Get a lot of torque with this drive, so I'm not going to get too crazy with it. And we can always tighten it more later if we need to. It leaks a little. Try right there. And then we got a 7/8 on this guy. I didn't put any Teflon tape on this just because it's such a nice threaded fit. I figure I'll need it since it's just seating off. So, a little more light there. Let's get this nice and tight. Okay. And then I did pre-route before I tightened that. I set this over the nut and just set it in place there. So this is in position. Now we can get the hoses and make that connection. And I think next I'll just go ahead and put the radiator on. Radiator's pretty straightforward. There's just 2 bolts down in there. You can see there's one of the mounting areas right there. There's another one that's right there. So it just basically bolts. There's a nice frame around the radiator, and it just bolts on there. The radiator has got a 5/8 locking nut, and then they've got this rubber bushing, so it just sets down on that frame mount on top of the rubber. And then we got a washer and the lock nut, and I'll just have to use a wrench and work my way around because it's in a little tiny space there. And there we can see the bottom of the radiator. So we'll put the washer and the lock nut on there and on the other side. So for the hose connection, I just went to AutoZone and got me a hose. It was extra long, but it kind of had this shape, and I've cut it off to get it close to matching up here. Yeah, and that looks like that's going to work just fine with no kinks. So let me get the clamps to put on there. I've got these nice stainless style clamps that they used to use back then. And evidently the size I got is exactly the size of the OD, so these don't work. I do have the trusty worm clamps to get me by for now. Okay, now we've got the heater, return lines, and we've got the radiator hoses all installed now. So we'll fill it up and give it a start, see if we got any leaks. Well, major setback. One thing we didn't do, I guess we should have just replaced it for the heck of it, but put coolant in there, and now we've got a nice solid drip coming out of the water pump. So the water pump seal's no good. Okay, we got the water pump removed, and I'll see if I can find another. Hopefully don't have to rebuild. That would be horrible. So we'll try again tomorrow.